The opposition view from the defense critics. James Bezan articulates the conservative position. Randall Garrison is here for the NDP as well. I don't know if I should equate this, but question period, almost all of question period went by before anyone asked questions about this policy, which to me says you haven't got any meaty substance to grab onto and criticize. Why was it, A, not given the highlight package in the House of Commons during question period, and B, what's your biggest problem with this, James?
Well, there's a lot on question period today, and you got to remember that press conference with the minister only happened at 12:30. You got to take time to get your questions formulated in through the system and get practice.
Oh, you knew the questions right off the bat.
But we still ask the questions of the government. I thought the Prime Minister was very flat on trying to defend his defense policy review, and this is again is a policy that's been delayed in coming out. It occurs more dithering in making decisions and punting hard decisions down the road. I think most people are going to be relatively disappointed when they realize that the money is not there to support the promises that really are going to be, empty promises that are in this defense policy. So, I think that we are very concerned that there's some creative accounting taking place and how they get up to the 1.4% of GDP, adding in veterans' pensions, which had never been done before, taking money from Canada Border Services and Coast Guard breaking, ice-breaking services, and all these things are going to get dumped into defense spending. It's pretty hard to believe. And that's why the dollars aren't there. We've already seen the track record of this government, which is to take $12 billion out of the defense budget already and punt it down the road 20 years. And so how are they going to find new money to make these investments when they haven't made those investments so far?
People always, I'll get to you, Randall. I just got to ask you, James, one more question. And people always said the Harper government kicked the can down the road. They didn't deliver the equipment that was needed. We never really saw the spending that was promised as long-term sustainable funding just seemed to evaporate as soon as deficit elimination became the goal.
So the Liberal government's already halfway into their mandate and they haven't bought one new piece of equipment. The one thing that they said they were going to buy is caught up in the courts.
10 years, James. You had 10
years. New Hercs, new C-17s. We started the replacement for all of our frigates, of all our Navy ships. We bought new tanks. We bought new labs. We armed up our Army. We armed up our Air Force.
Still got a long way to go, right?
But there's still a lot of equipment there. But things wear out, and you got to continue to replace. Yeah. That's what this, and actually, if you look at the policy and the equipment that they're buying, for the most part, it's the extension of the Canada First defense strategy of the Conservatives. But is the dollars there to make the investments? And, if you want to buy some new kit quick, you go out and you actually start the decision to an open and fair, transparent competition to replace our CF-18s.
Randall, too much spending, too little spending, just right? Where's the problem here?
Well, as a New Democrat, I know people expect us to say too much military spending, but really what's happened since 2012 is the Conservatives and Liberals have cut the military so far that we don't have the equipment, the training, and the support we need for the people in the Canadian Forces. So we said there needs to be an increase. And what's missing from this strategy announced today is anything for this year. There's absolutely no new money for this year, and we're starting a new deployment in Latvia, which we support, and there's supposed to be a peacekeeping mission, which we also support. But you can't keep doing new things with money less than the rate of inflation. And earlier this year, we had the Chief of Defense Staff saying we're going to have to cut back on non-essential things. Now, I don't know what the military does that's not essential, but he said things like training, maintenance, so we can sustain our overseas missions. That means there's not enough money in the pot right now for the military to do the things we're asking them to do.
But yet Minister Marno said that when we were asked about the budget, about the spending on defense, he says it's appropriately provisioned.
Yes.
That doesn't tell me there's more new money, and of course they're making these going to do the spending after the next election. So that tells me this isn't a priority for this government.
Let's assume that the spending's taken care of somehow. I know a lot of people can't find it, but let's say it's there. Is there anything? Have you seen anything here that equates the foreign policy announcement yesterday to a military response today? Does it make sense?
Well, what I'd say is that yesterday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs led us to believe Canada was going to play a leadership role, and that meant, to me, having something substantive and immediate in this defense review, and it's just not there. So there's some kind of gap between what the minister said yesterday as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and what this minister said today. Now, what we've argued is if you increase military spending, which you should do, you also ought to dollar for dollar increase aid spending. spending to try and attack some of the causes of the instability in the world. So we don't see anything here that allows Canada to play that leadership role that they were trying to claim.
I don't know what type of $8 you're going to spend to change Putin's mind, but you got some reality in what you're dealing with in geopolitics. But the issue here is that it's almost Jekyll and Hyde, or Jekyll and Hyde.
You're used to heckling,
easy for you
so
to
what
say.
the heck?
But anyway, you got the ministry yesterday, Foreign Affairs, in the House making her appearance in the House, releasing their foreign policy, which we aren't going to get with the defense policy. It was released off the Hill, which is unfortunate. So we aren't going to get a chance for full debate and a vote on the defense policy itself. But she's saying the U.S. isn't doing enough, and we're disappointed in the United States. And today, Minister Stajan's coming out and saying, well, we're the closest partner and ally with the United States, and we're going to work beside them. So really, it's mixed messages. It's speaking on both sides of your face, and I think that's going to be confusing for our American partners. The other thing is that we didn't see in the defense policy today, where are we going with peacekeeping? They talk about it. It's been already 5-6 months behind schedule on releasing that information to us. So we're supposed to receive it last November, last December. No decisions on how they're going to go out and do that. How we're going to do more in NATO. They talk about they're going to play a bigger role, but there's no details, or how we're going to expand NORAD. So, if you're looking at our multilateral roles, as well as defense of North America and defense of Canada, what's the plan here? All we got was a shopping list without any resources to actually buy the equipment that we need.
Quick last question to both of you. What if you had the money they have, or alleged to have, would you do within the bounds of affordability in the next 2 years to make the military, optimize the military for the next 2 years? What would you do, Randall?
Well, we said what we really need is an increase in the operational budget of the military that's beyond the rate of inflation, a good increase, the increase that the Liberals actually promised before in the election campaign that they haven't delivered in the last 2 budgets. So if we do that, then we're going to be in a much better place in terms of training, recruitment, and all the kind of things we need to do to take on the big tasks coming up in the future. So we need that immediate increase in the operating budget. And yes, it's a great idea to plan. We have to plan, and we have to know the costs of equipment down the road. But you have to judge a government by what it actually does.
Would you go deeper into deficit to do that?
Well, we ran on raising corporate taxes and raising some more income to pay the bills here. So no, it's not necessarily a question of deficit.
James, urgent priority number one.
So first of all, of course, is fighter jets. They should go to competition immediately, not an interim buy. Get something that's easy to implement, and that's something our Royal Canadian Air Force actually want. Secondly, is I'm disappointed in, as you already mentioned, on the submarines. We can't continue on with the upgrades of the Victoria-class submarines. We need to have a new submarine. We have 3 coasts that we have to protect. There's proliferation of submarines around the world, especially in the Pacific-Asia region, that are trying to traverse through the Arctic. So we have to have under-ice capabilities, and so the subs are a big point, and they need to start going down that path, and that's not was missing in this policy review. The other thing that was missing is, what are we going to do to replace our Kingston-class maritime patrol vessels? So actually, the Navy's going to be getting less capability here. They're only talking 15 surface combatants to replace both the destroyers and the frigates. So what do we do if we don't have the coastal patrol vessels? Are we going to do that all with a deep blue fleet to do the up close work, or is it just going to be Arctic offshore patrol vessels and that's it?
Out of time. Thank you both. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay, Bob.
So we've